Hey guys, I'm Nick with Martech Engineering, and today I'll be showing you how to install our transfer case skid plate kit that pairs with our solid axle front kit. This is a pretty simple kit. It's got two frame plates that get welded into your chassis. We have a bolt-in rear crossmember design and a skid plate that bolts into your existing crossmember and this crossmember. So we're going to go ahead and get this out of the truck and get it installed. Before we put that crossmember in, we're going to go ahead and wire wheel the frame. Those frame plates sit up against the inner C channel and they weld to the outer C channel. So we're just going to go ahead and clean up this weld surface here and obviously clean up the weld surface on the other side. So now that we're ready, we're going to go ahead and put the crossmember up in there for now. We don't have the backing plates on it that get welded to the frame yet. Right now we're just going to stick it in place. We're just going to let this hang out there. You have to make sure that the three drilled and tapped holes are facing outwards because that's where your skid plate bolts will go in. Next step is going to be to get the skid plate and mock it up in place. This rear crossmember is already tapped for these three bolts to go through. So back here, we're just going to lightly put these together. Finger tight at first. Once you've got these three started, you're going to take a clamp and just pull it nice and tight so that everything is squeezed tight as it should be. 9/16 socket, and we're going to go ahead and tighten these up. Now that we have the skid plate kit designed, our cross members for the solid axle kit will have holes for the bolts in them. Anything from before then, you're going to have to drill and tap those holes. So obviously on this one, that's what we'll be doing. So what we're going to do is we're going to squeeze this with some clamps nice and tight. We're going to center it side to side off of the distance from the skid plate to the transmission mount. And then we're going to drill two holes with a 5/16 bit. We're going to tap them with a 3/8/16 tap. That way you can use a provided hardware. And that's that taken care of. So with the crossmember bolted in front and rear, we know that everything's aligned to where it needs to be. The next thing we're going to be doing is taking the frame plates. We're going to slide them behind the crossmember frame plates, bolt them in, make sure everything's good as far as the weld prep, things like that, fitment of course. Then we're going to go ahead and weld those in. So once you got the frame plates in, it should look something like this. We've got the three bolts on this side, the three bolts on this side. All of our hardware is tight on this thing. The last thing we're going to do is just make sure that those frame plates are floating equally between the top and the bottom of the C channel it's going to get welded to. The reason why is then you have a little bit of a weld gap to get into. You can ensure good penetration, get you a nice weld in there. So you can see here, got about an 1/8 inch gap on the bottom, 1/8 inch on the top. Same thing over here, 1/8 on the bottom, 1/8 on the top. I'm going to go ahead and run a weld down these sides right here on all four corners to ensure the plate won't go anywhere. From there, I'm going to take the whole thing out and finish weld it. I'm able to give you a little better look now at the weld gap you're going to be looking for top and bottom. So now that everything's welded in, you got your crossmember bolted back in. Before I tighten these bolts, I put the skid plate in and tighten up all those bolts first. Reason being is that's going to set all your dimensions and get everything to sit exactly where it needs to be. All right, so we've got all 5 of the skid plate bolts in. I'm gonna take my spin jack and pick this thing up, make sure it's sitting nice and tight. If you're doing this on the ground, a floor jack's gonna obviously take this spin jack's place. I think a floor jack would almost be a little bit easier. And that's it. So now that everything's in, everything's set, you're gonna tighten your 3 bolts per side. I put a little bit of anti-seize on these threads, makes them go together far easier, and obviously makes them live a lot longer as you're gonna be running these in and out from time to time. And that's it. Skid plate's in, cross member's nice and tight. You are ready to go bash your truck into some rocks. Thanks so much for watching, guys. We'll see you on the next one.